Hello, everyone. My name is Khodi Kaviani. I'm a professor at Central Washington University, Department of Education, Development, Teaching, and Learning. My area of research includes Middle Eastern culture, education, and politics. I examine the intersection of ideology and education. Today's talk is about misrepresentations of Zoroastrians in Iranian textbooks. For full disclosure, I am a Zoroastrian, and I left Iran in 1979, right after the collapse of the monarchy. I've studied the gradual but systematic erasing, neglect, and omission of symbols and information related to the pre-Islamic culture of Iran. As a response, I began producing cultural songs that showcase the meaning of each of the 12 months in the Iranian calendar. We have a festival for each month. Those songs are accessible to you through the CWU digital archives. I have examined the misrepresentation of Zoroastrians in Iranian textbooks through the lens of social identity theory that argues the complex processes involved in establishing social identities that distinguish a group of people from others as necessitated by the environmental issues and pressures. I also use explicit curriculum and null curriculum to showcase how the misrepresentations happen. The collective identity uniting the Iranian Zoroastrians is rooted in several key factors that include the monthly festivals and celebrations evident in our traditional Iranian solar calendar, the spoken language called Dari or Zoroastrian Dari, and efforts to follow the teachings of Zoroaster according to Zoroaster's songs, which are referred to as Gatha, and historical connections to Iran as the birthplace and once the stronghold of Zoroastrianism. With the fall of the Shah and end of monarchy in 1979, an Islamic theocracy under the leadership of Khomeini reimagined Iran as an Islamic state, and that is reflected in its current flag and social norms that are archaic, backwards, and anti-women. Iran is about 2.4 times larger than Texas. It's a vast country with over 7 million people. Zoroastrians call themselves Mazdayasni, meaning the worshippers of Mazda. Mazda means the great wise one or the great wisdom. In Gatha, the Zoroaster's songs, Yasna Hot 22, Section 1, we read, O Ahura, I ask you this question and answer me truthfully. How should your humble lovers worship you? So this signifies the relationship between the creator and each person, the personal relationship, the relationship that is between a lover and a beloved. Please keep this in mind as later we examine how textbooks refer to this relationship. Zoroaster's teachings are summarized into the 3 principles of good thoughts, good words, and good deeds. It's easier said than done. It's not easy to be a Zoroastrian. Just try to live one day following good thoughts, good words, good deeds. The Japanese car maker has also used the symbol and name of Mazda, a modified version of it, as the symbol for their car. Some of you may be driving a Mazda. In Zoroastrianism, the four elements of water, earth, air, and fire are sacred and should be protected. Humans have freedom of choice in life and have the agency to make changes and improve their lives. The Iranian solar calendar that the Zoroastrians have preserved has 30 days for each month. So 12 times 30 gives us 360, plus the 5 chapters of Zoroaster's songs gives us 365, plus an extra day every 4 years, keeps the solar calendar consistent. And as you can see, the names of these for each day of the month, they are repeated throughout the year as a way of focusing on certain aspects of life. For example, day number 10 is about water, valuing the precious commodity that we have, water, or day number 9, which is about fire, and so forth. Cyrus the Great, the founder of the Achaemenid Persian Empire, exemplified tolerance and freedom of choice that Zoroaster promoted. Centuries later, when the Iranian Empire was still quite vast, we see influences of Zoroastrianism in gold and silver coins with images of fire altars on them. With the rise of Islam and defeat of a militarily weak Iranian state in a few key battles, Muslims take over Iran gradually. Their strategy was simple. Choices that were offered to people was either convert to Islam and be spared, or prepare to fight if you don't convert, or pay jizya, or a religious tax, if you want to practice your religion. Many Zoroastrians left Iran for India about 1200 years ago, and the story of Zoroastrians' mass migration is recorded in a book written in poetry style by Bahman Keyhobad. The travel diary of a French Christian missionary, Sanson, to Iran during the reign of Shah Suleiman Safavi is quite revealing. Sanson describes a scene of a Catholic Armenian who should not have been on the same road as the king, who was traveling with his wives. The young man was brought before a judge. He was found guilty, and before being beheaded, he was presented with the option of, all right, become a Muslim, and we spare your life. The king is going to forgive you. The man refused, and his head was chopped off, and his dead body was thrown to the dogs. Sanson used his influence and requested the dismembered body to be buried in the French cemetery. Today, the number of Armenian and Assyrian Christians in Iran is about 117,700 people. Keykhosrow Shahrukh's son writes about his father's experiences in Yazd and Kerman, 2 cities with sizable Zoroastrian population. He described the condition of Zoroastrians this way: so bad that even they didn't have the right to wear proper clothes. They didn't have permission to ride a horse, a donkey, or a mule. In rainy days, they had to be careful not to get too close to a Muslim for the fear of passing impurities and avoid any physical contact. Otherwise, they would be severely beaten. Zoroastrians oftentimes were attacked by Muslims. When shopping in bazaar, they were not allowed to touch the fruits. Zoroastrians were called Gabr or Kafar, infidel, or subservient to Islam, Mutiul Islam. In more recent history, we all have seen the destruction of the largest Buddha carving statue in Bamiyan of Afghanistan by Taliban in 2001, and destruction of priceless historical artifacts by the Islamic State in Iraq and Levant in Iraq in 2014. So this is nothing new. Today, Ali Khamenei is the supreme leader in Iran, and he has the final word on all important issues. All people, regardless of their age, are treated as minors and must obey the Islamic dress code that his regime has imposed on all people in Iran. If women are not dressed Islamic enough, they risk being arrested, and have been cases where they died in captivity, like the case of Mahsa Jina Amini and many others. So again, this oppression has been going on for many years. Approximately 16 million people attend school in Iran from grades 1 to 12. That's about 20% of the population, so 1/5 of the population. Dropout rates is on the rise due to economic conditions, worsening of economic conditions. Schools are segregated by gender, and certain courses have different textbooks for boys and girls. Schooling is a mixture of education and Islamic religious indoctrination. It is textbook driven, and the government controls and publishes the textbooks. So here you see a couple samples. Islamic indoctrination begins in early schooling. Learning Quran starts from the first grade and continues into high school and university. In addition to a dedicated course about Islam, which is the book in the middle that I've highlighted, the other subjects like Persian language and even mathematics are not immune from religious indoctrination. I will present only a few sample pages to warrant my claims. In this first grade Persian language textbook, there are specific lessons that promote the reading of Quran, attending a segregated mosque, that a curtain separates men from women, and a lesson to honor the deceased leader of the Islamic Republic. By looking at these pictures, you wouldn't know that this is a first grade math book. The first image is of Khomeini, and so as soon as you open the book, the first picture you see is Khomeini's picture. And the math lessons show girls in praying position, a boy washing in preparation for praying, and an image showing a young child participating in an Islamic mourning ceremony in the streets of the city, the one on the right-hand side. In an attempt to show how Christianity, Judaism, Islam, and Zoroastrianism are similar, in the 12th grade, there is a course specifically designed for these three recognized religious minorities. We read about fearing God, and who in their right mind would not be fearful of God? As you may recall earlier in my introduction, I mentioned that in Zoroastrianism, we don't have such a concept that defines the relationship between humans and the Creator in a fearful sense. The relationship, according to Zoroaster's Gata, is one that is between a lover and a beloved. I ask you this question and answer me truthfully. How should your humble lovers worship you? In the 5th grade Farsi textbook, there is a reference to Mubad, a Zoroastrian priest. There are no other explanations provided. The coverage is superficial and leaves out many important details. So that's when you leave out stuff, we refer to that as the null curriculum. In the 11th grade Farsi textbook, there is a story about people rising up against a tyrant king by the name of Zahak or Ajidahak that is mentioned in Zoroastrian literature. The main message is this: there are no good kings. The story leaves out the famous King Feridun, who replaces Zahak, and the festival of Mehregan that honors that event. It's noteworthy to mention that on the last day of this festival, that runs for 5 days, people ask themselves this question: what did I do? What was my role in bringing this tyrant to power? That's a powerful message that is clearly omitted from this story here. In the 4th grade social studies textbook, the references made to Zoroastrians implies that they don't exist anymore. It also makes the false claim that Iranians accepted Islam with open arms. Isn't that interesting? On page 25, or 7th grade social studies textbook, without much context, the authors claim Zoroastrian priests were oppressive, and that was part of the reason why Iranians accepted Islam with open arms. There's something about this open arms obsession, that it had to be open arms. Well, it's not. Just think of how many people have left Iran even today. Over 8 million Iranians have left Iran, and they are not necessarily proud to refer to themselves as Muslims. There are no explanations given for the ruined images of fire temples. We don't know who destroyed them. There's no discussion of why they were destroyed. We know that many of the fire temples in Iran were converted to mosques, and most were destroyed, along with the books. There are many more examples that I can present. However, the point I want to make is this: knowledge is not neutral. What should be the purpose of education? Well, examining issues from multiple viewpoints and learning to recognize values that are aligned with democratic ideals. And education is different than indoctrination. In education, we are encouraged to question things. Indoctrination limits a person's ability to think, compare, and choose, and that's what they are afraid of. That's what they don't want you to do under Taliban in Afghanistan. That's what they don't want you to do in Iran. And at this point, I thank you for your attention, and I hope you learned a few new things. And I'll stop sharing the screen. If you have any questions, comments, I'd be glad to hear them.